The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
All right, everybody, let's go ahead and get started here. If anybody joins late, we can obviously get a recording of this webinar to all registrants. So I want to take a quick second. My name is Joe Jost. I'm a vice president at AdTaxi. I'm specifically in charge of our business development team. And I'm here to speak with each of you today about the state of video as we see it here in 2018. I think there's been a lot of new interesting things that have been coming up in the world of video. And I think that with every client call that I've been on or meeting with different agencies across the country, certainly one of the big topics that is coming up is that around connected TV. And I think there's a lot of throwing around of terms that I think we can definitely try to get some clarity around as far as it relates to connected TV and addressable TV, linear video on demand, all those kinds of things. So hopefully we can try to clear up some of those things, but also want to spend some time really digging into some of those new capabilities that are in YouTube as well. So obviously pre-roll video, social video, those are all still things that are happening in our industry. But I want to spend a lot of the time today really talking about those two shiny objects, I think connected TV and the new things with YouTube. So jumping into our agenda, I want to kick things off really digging into what are the profiles of cord cutters and cord nevers. I think these are terms that we tend to use specifically with regards to kind of the trend of people cutting that cord or moving away from paid subscription TV. But what I'm finding is that we haven't actually done a very good job of defining who these people are, what their demographics are, what their buying power looks like. So hopefully we can shed some light on that. From there, we'll dig into some video trends just in terms of what do usage patterns look like for video? How is our industry as a whole buying video? I think what we'll start to see is some really interesting acceleration beyond original forecasts that came out just within the past 12 months or so. And then where I'll spend the majority of our conversation today is really focusing on video to drive awareness, and then also video to drive intent. So kind of the dual purposes of video, if you will. And I think in that we'll also be able to showcase some of the differences between digital video and broadcast TV. So hopefully in that section, those 3 points you see right there, we'll start to get some real good clarity around what's out there and how we can use this for our business. And then after that, we'll just go ahead and wrap it up. So jumping right in, I want to roll back the clock a little bit and start to look at kind of a something that's already happened within the past 10, 15 years or so. So while these days the term cord cutter generally refers to people who are moving away from traditional pay subscription TV, I think it's important to remember that this term actually originates in telecom. So in the mid 2000s, with the rise of mobile phones, households began seeing the landline telephone as unnecessary, and eventually they quote unquote cut the cord, moving to an entirely mobile household. So back in 2004, as you can see there on the chart, nearly all homes had a landline, right? But if you fast forward to about 10 years from then to the year 2014, 2015, and that inflection point has occurred, right? So the decline of the landline has been steady, and these days, in the year 2018, more homes have no landline at all. So what else is interesting is the fact that telecom statistics are often propped up by kind of those office environments or office settings in which all employees have a wired landline. So I'd wager that quite a few of us on today's webinar are actually dialing in through a landline telephone, even though it is year 2018, and we probably all certainly have mobile phones as well. So this decline that we see as it relates to the landline could possibly be sharper even still if the corporate world had ended up kind of throwing in the towel on landline phones as well. Now, I call this out because it's important to look at these trends, because this is the reality of the TV industry at this point in time, right? So what we see here in front of us is the template for what's about to happen or what is already happening within TV. So looking at the TV industry then, we are right around the equivalent of the year 2010 when we compare to the landline telephone decline. So this year, in 2018, nearly 68 million people will have cut the cord or be a cord never, representing about 27% of all US adults. So just 4 years from now, here on the right-hand side of this chart, by 2022, 95 million will be either cord cutters or cord nevers, which represents about 35% of US adults. So the industry believes that by the year 2030, more than 50% of US households will be cord cutters or cord nevers. And again, given kind of the acceleration statistics that I've read and that I'll be showcasing in just a few minutes here, I think it's safe to say that these statistics could be accelerated themselves. So that inflection point occurring in 2030 might actually happen well before that. Again, just given how people are adopting this technology. So there's many similarities between cord cutters and cord nevers, but there's also quite a few differences, which I think I want to call out. But first and foremost, I just want to make sure I define both of these groups. We've obviously all heard the terms, but a cord cutter is defined as a person who has removed or gone away from their subscription TV programming in the past year. And a cord never is a person who has never paid for subscription TV programming, or they have not paid for it in the past 5 years. That trailing 5 years is kind of the cutoff point as far as how they're how different places like GfK or eMarketer, et cetera, are defining kind of that cord never. So the first thing to call out here is how highly YouTube features, I think, in the preferred streaming services. So YouTube's reach should never be understated, I don't think. And that's the reason I'll be sharing some of YouTube's newest features with you later in today's discussion. So really interesting that it's, you know, number 1 or number 2 between cord cutters and cord nevers. But beyond that, notice how cord cutters and cord nevers are actually diverging in the type of content that they view. So PBS, Disney, A&E, those types of things, long format services are being reserved for cord cutters, and cord nevers instead are looking at, you know, short form content like Vivo, BBC News, etc. And the reason I call this out is simply because if you want to reach both of these audiences, which obviously represents a growing base and has quite a few people that are adopting, you know, cord cutting or cord nevering as well. In order to reach them moving forward, it would take a kind of a blend of connected TV and addressable TV. Connected TV really fosters that long format viewing behavior, whereas addressable TV is more conducive to short form content viewing as well. So again, I'll get more into that more you know, in a few minutes here, but I did at least want to call that out as we're looking at cord cutters and cord nevers. But lastly, the thing to point out is the average household income. So I know if you're looking at, you know, $41,000 or $52,000 as part of that household income, that's obviously not the C-level of executive who is making hundreds of thousands of dollars and has all this money to spend. But what these are the young families, and they're the future families of the U.S., right? So this is the current workforce, the future workforce of America, and these household incomes will only grow over time, which I think highlights the importance of jumping on that connected TV trend pretty much ASAP. So at AdTaxi, we tend to think of the metric lifetime value, right? So what is the benefit of getting a person to become your customer and then have repeat business from your, you know, repeat business over the years, of course. And I think that what we are experiencing right now with kind of the advent of connected TV is, it's given how nascent it is and given how quickly it's growing, we have the ability to really control you know, your flow of information, how the audiences receive you, because at the moment it's less competitive, and at the moment it's a great opportunity for you as advertisers to be more visible in the eyes of, you know, cord cutters, cord nevers, and of course all the different target audiences that you try to reach. So hopefully you understand and you can see how lifetime value can of course apply to getting in early on connected TV as well. So from here, let's also dig into how video is being used and consumed in the marketplace. And I think there's some really interesting things going on here. The first is that 85% of the US internet audience watches video online, and half of them, or half of US consumers, are subscribing to paid streaming video services. So you might already have, obviously not everybody is a cord cutter. We kind of established that with the statistics that we looked at already. But a lot of people have their Comcast subscriptions, their Cox subscriptions, their Spectrum subscriptions, whatever it might be, but they're also paying for a supplemental service, which could be like Netflix or HBO Go or Hulu or some, you know, specialty niche programming, et cetera. So again, really interesting that half of US consumers are also paying for streaming video services. The second is that more video content is uploaded in 30 days than major US TV networks have created in the past 30 years, which is kind of an astronomical, you know, pretty groundbreaking statement to say. The thing that I would call out here is that these days, you know, obviously YouTube influencers are a big deal. If you ask children what their favorite show on TV is, oftentimes they'll give you a YouTube program or a YouTube talking head or influencer, as opposed to an actual TV show on TV. So I think we're starting to kind of see a shift in how people even define TV and watching video and shows, quote unquote. Then the third piece is that more than 500 million hours of videos are watched on YouTube every day. Again, just a staggering figure showing how the type of penetration and the type of reach I think that YouTube itself has. But while all three of those points are pretty interesting, I think the fourth is clearly kind of the most important, and that's marketers who use video grow revenue 49% faster than non-video users. And to me, this is really important because as I sit across from clients, I regularly hear, they don't want to pay for production for video assets. They see it as more of an awareness vehicle, and their business is more direct response. They don't necessarily see that kind of click attribution from video, right? People who see it and directly convert, like they see with, say, maybe search campaigns or social campaigns, something like that. And I think the proof right here is in the pudding that while it's easy to kind of dismiss video that way, it should never be forgotten that it is a great driver of awareness. It is a great driver of consideration. You control, or you can deliver a significant amount of information that does significantly more for branding and familiarity and resonance with your target audience than any of the other platforms can. So I definitely think it has a place here, and especially given the fact that other marketers are seeing that it grows revenue 49% faster than those who don't use it. So again, take that for what it's worth, but I think it's definitely something important there. So we've dug into cord cutters and cord nevers. We've identified kind of those astronomical usage patterns in the marketplace, but I also want to take a look at our industry, right? How is our industry moving towards these trends? And what we see here is that just over a year ago, here the line at the bottom, that purple line at the bottom, eMarketer distributed their forecast for digital video ad spending, and within 7 months, they actually revised that forecast as shown by the green line at the top, which is highlighted by a $4.7 billion increase in the year 2021. So basically, they came out with their forecasts, and then within 7 months, they realized that things were accelerating or trending up beyond their wildest dreams. And so as a result of that, they had to reforecast. This, like I said, this came out in just a year ago. And here we are in 2018, and there's already a $2.5 billion delta from the original forecast. So the theme so far, I think, has been acceleration, right? Acceleration of cord cutters and cord nevers, acceleration of that inflection point when there might be more cord cutters and cord nevers in the US than people who have actual paid subscription TV services, acceleration in our industry, et cetera. So as advertisers and as business owners, it's our job to make sure that we're keeping up with the market, making sure that our message is still as visible, if not more so, than it ever has been in the past. Because again, we live in a world where fragmentation is occurring more and more regularly. So everything that we can do or every channel and every platform that we can take advantage to get our message out there helps us resolve some of that fragmentation issue that we've been experiencing in the past few years. So from there, now that we've had a chance to kind of look at all those trends and really kind of set a good foundation for today's conversation, I want to take a second here to really call out those dual purposes of video, right? The first is, I think, what we're all mostly familiar with, in that it's video to drive awareness. Be that awareness vehicle for our business or for our brand. And I think, of course, pre-roll does a good job of this, social does a good job of this, but for today's conversation, we're going to be talking about connected and addressable TV, and starting to layer in some of the cool technology features that can go on behind the scenes to give us significantly more information about the effectiveness of our campaign, especially when compared to traditional TV or cable TV, et cetera. Then the bottom half, or the second half that I want to talk about, is video to drive intent. And I think that this is going to be probably where we'll probably spend some time uncovering new things or new ways of looking at, for example, YouTube, and how it can do a great job of driving that intent and driving those conversions and activity on our own websites. And I think the nice thing about YouTube is that it's obviously the second largest search engine to Google, and Google, of course, owns YouTube. So there's really cool synergies that take place between those two platforms, whether it be a search campaign powering a YouTube campaign, or a YouTube campaign creating separate ad groups within our search campaigns to drive effectiveness there. I think these are all things that we'll be, of course, able to dig into later on in the webinar. So with that, let's kick it off with the top side, the awareness side of things. And in order to do this, I just want to kind of recalibrate everybody. Again, in the beginning of the presentation, I sort of alluded to the fact that a lot of terms are just getting thrown around out there. A lot of people say connected TV when I think that they're referring to is, in fact, advanced TV. Advanced TV is the umbrella term for basically TV or digital TV, right? Online TV. And so as a result of this, advanced TV encapsulates or includes terms such as connected TV, linear TV, smart TV, video on demand, these kinds of things, right? So advanced TV, again, it's that online video watching experience. It's that online TV watching experience. That's what we're talking about here. But from there, it starts to get a little bit hierarchical. So this slide and one or two after this are going to start to showcase what I mean by this hierarchy underneath advanced TV. So for our conversation today, we'll really focus on these two, which are connected TV and addressable. So connected TV refers to that same exact TV watching experience that we're pretty much all used to doing. It refers to, the big screen TV in our basement or in our living rooms, whatever that might be, sitting on that sofa or that sectional, basically leaning back with the family, etc. That's connected TV. Addressable TV is referred to as watching any kind of TV programming just on our connected devices. So our laptops, our mobile phones, our iPads, our tablets, etc. Basically, looking at the CBS All Access app, watching Survivor on our phone. Connected TV, though, of course, like I mentioned just a second ago, it would be like watching Survivor or watching, sports on that 65-inch TV that's in our basement. So that's kind of the clear line of delineation between those two services. And when I mentioned earlier, or those two platforms, and earlier, if you recall, I mentioned how connected TV might be more conducive to long format viewing. And as a result, it would resonate better with cord cutters, sorry, lost my train of thought there, would resonate more with cord cutters. And addressable TV is more conducive to that short format video, right? So as a result, it would be more appropriate for cord nevers, right? And so when I said in order to reach both of those groups, we want to blend, that's what I was referring to right here. Now, beyond that, further breaking out the hierarchy is there's platforms that have either ads supported or they offer no ads. And so in this, that's going to be like your Sling TVs, your YouTube Reds, your Hulus, etc., that may have a, maybe a minimal paid subscription. So in the instance of Hulu, there is a basic package in which you pay a few dollars a month, but you also still receive ads. However, there's also the flip side of the coin where it's more premium subscriptions in which you pay, higher, maybe $8 or $9 a month as opposed to $4 or $5 a month. And as a result, you have no ad services available. For example, so Hulu bridges both those gaps, but HBO Go, HBO Now, Amazon Prime, Netflix, all those, they are those premium subscriptions that have no ads available to them, whereas these others that you see here on the left do offer ads. Obviously, as advertisers, if we're trying to make use of connected TV, we can only utilize the platforms that do allow for ads, which takes us then to this further hierarchy, which is kind of the difference or the delineation between premium distributors and content owners. So within connected TV, if I have for instance, I am a cord cutter. I have an Apple TV in my basement and the other TVs throughout my house. And so on that Apple TV, I can have Sling TV or DirecTV Now or YouTube Red or PS View, whatever. So each of those is essentially kind of an aggregator of TV content for multiple networks. And what this means is that we as consumers or as cord cutters, we're able to purchase kind of a light version of a TV package or of a channel package. So whereas with Comcast Xfinity, I might have to spend, $60, $80, $100 a month and I get hundreds of channels. In this instance, I can pay $30, $35 a month and I can get the most popular 30 to 40 channels that are out there. And what these do, because they are aggregating those 30 or 40 channels that are available, all the inventory, all the advertising inventory that is part of those 30 or 40 channels is available to be purchased and targeted off of via you as advertisers. The other side of the coin would be if I have my Apple TV out or my Roku or my Chromecast, I can, rather than purchasing and paying Sling TV, I can instead buy or download standalone apps directly from the network. So that might be like what you see here, Bloomberg, Discovery Channel, Nat Geo, HGTV, etc. They all have standalone apps as well. And so from there, you can also, we as advertisers can also purchase the advertising inventory that exists on those platforms, whether they be standalone or as those premium distributors that come through those OTT devices. And just so we're all aware, OTT refers to over the top. So basically, this is a device that we can plug into our TV. The alternative to that, or the traditional alternative to that, would be over the air, OTA, which refers to coming in through the airwaves. Now, the biggest thing, or the biggest takeaway probably from all of this, is that while we have distributors, we have content owners, and we have all these different ways of getting your message in front of consumers, it's not about the channel, right? At the end of the day, we don't want to be going in there and buying only Sling TV or only YouTube Red or only Nat Geo or something like that. Instead, what we want to do is we want to make sure that we're targeting the proper audience, right? So we might want to target 25 to 34-year-old males living in the Twin Cities or Minneapolis, interested in soccer, interested in the X, Y, and Z bands, etc. And as a result of that, as a result of that ability to target, now you as advertisers have a much better way of making sure that your message is being delivered to exactly who your target audience is, rather than programming that indexes highly for your audience. And what I mean by this is, I really like the show Price is Right, but every single advertisement in that show is about prescription medicines or just things that are not relevant to me as a mid-30-year-old, right? So as a result of that, if I've been watching and said Price is Right rather than on, across the, the antenna on my TV, instead I could be watching it through a connected TV system, and in that I would be able to be advertised to utilizing, or sorry, I would be able to be advertised to against my behaviors, my age, my demographics, my household income, all these different things, right? And that's why you see this chart on the left, because the message recall, the brand recall, the favorability or the likability of advertisements that we see on connected TV is nearly double what we see versus traditional TV platforms. And I think, again, it's because of, one, there's fewer ad positions in a connected TV environment, as well as the fact that any type of advertising is much more targeted than anything that you would be able to get through traditional TV. So that front end targeting and being kind of channel agnostic, because all we care about is the audience, I think is one of the biggest takeaways coming from the ability to get digital TV or advanced TV capabilities for you guys as advertisers. Now, again, I just mentioned the ability to target. It's important, I think, to kind of just refresh all the different types of targeting that are available. So just like any of ad tech's, these social campaigns, programmatic campaigns, banner campaigns, quantum campaigns, etc., we can layer in all that same type of targeting into our targeting for connected TV and, quite honestly, for video at large. So this includes first-party data targeting. This is your holy grail. This could be referring to pixel activity on your own site, your customer list, past purchasers, point of sale data, CRM data, etc. Essentially, we can utilize that to directly target that audience in a connected TV environment. From there, we can do lookalike modeling, which is essentially an opportunity to add concentric layers or a halo effect to that first-party data that you already have. So if you have 1,000 people that are your past purchasers, let's find 10,000 more that look like them, right? Because clearly there was a reason that that first 1,000 people bought from you. After that, I think it's important to make sure that we supplement with third-party data targeting. This is like your behavioral targeting, your demo targeting, traits, age, gender, income, all those kinds of things. Pretty self-explanatory, I think. From there, we're able to also layer in retargeting across all devices. So if you have a video asset in hand, of course, we can use that for connected TV, but let's go ahead and make sure that we're also utilizing those assets for pre-roll, for social video, for in-banner video, for essentially all other types of retargeting platforms or inventory that would be available to you, to make sure that we're maintaining that reach and frequency and that top of mind awareness among our target audience. And then lastly, the ability to obviously geo-target, but that I think is self-explanatory, so we'll just cut it off there. Every person, when I'm talking about video, they seem to ask me, what is the proper length, or what is the proper message that I should be including? And we'll get to the proper messaging here in a few seconds, but the biggest thing I would take away from this is that you want to make sure it's less than 30 seconds. After 30 seconds, you're going to be charged. YouTube charges you for once you surpass 30 seconds of your ads. And beyond that, of course, It's the fact that people just start to get, their eyes just start to gloss over. They start to lose interest after you get past that 30-second mark. So I'd certainly make sure that it's, no longer than 30 seconds and maybe closer to that 15, 20-second hotspot or sweet spot if you can as well. So we've kind of outlined some of the key or some of the, the basic fundamentals of connected TV and why I think it makes sense. But here's where we kind of really showcase, I think, the true benefits of it. And the first is that it has TV's impact, right? It is still able to deliver on sight, sound, motion, and emotion, just like TV has always done that. But it also layers in digital's precision, whether that be on the front end or the back end. And let's just kind of dig into each of these here, right? So the first is that you can reach consumers beyond traditional TV. Clearly, we've already established the trends for cord cutters and cord nevers and how that's going to accelerate. So whether that's just supplementing the reach that you get from traditional broadcast TV, or whether you decide to pull budget away from traditional TV in order to bring it into connected TV, I think both of those solutions make a lot of sense given those trends of people moving away from that traditional environment. The second is message, device, and time optimization. We're able to, because it's digital, we're able to report out on exactly the different devices, the different times, the different days of the week, et cetera, that are delivering the best results. So we want to make sure that we're optimizing campaigns to match that effectiveness or match those quality audiences. So again, just the ability to optimize in real time against each of these things, as opposed to, basically no optimization at all, or very little insights coming at the back end of your campaigns. I think this is obviously a key differentiator here. The third is the ability to build immersive and creative experiences. So video is great at storytelling. It's also great at utilizing multiple video assets that you have available for sequencing that message. And so what I mean by this is, let's say in order to generate awareness, you have kind of a general awareness video. And from there, we're able to understand how many people watched that through to 100% completion, or how many people saw that video and then eventually went to your website. Once they've gotten onto your website, now let's make sure that we're retargeting them with a new video message, perhaps something that is more specific to products or services that you offer. From there, that group of people that have already come to your site, they see that video and now they come back to your website at a later date and they decide to look at multiple products, or look at your location page on the website. And then let's say they still haven't purchased from you or still haven't taken action, but now instead we decide to serve them another retargeted video ad. And again, what you're noticing is that we've segmented this audience. Now we serve them an ad about maybe a case study or a testimonial video or something along those lines. And that, of course, gets a person back to your website and pushes them over the edge to the point of purchase. Again, like I said, we've segmented that audience. We've paid attention to the different actions that they've taken, that they've done on your site, the different levels of engagement that they've had on your site, and we've created a sequence message that, one, moves them further down the path to purchase and is also very strategic based off of the different segments they've defined themselves as. But then two, it's also an opportunity to make sure that we're not playing with like that blindness that comes from seeing the same ad over and over and over again. So again, that the ability to build immersive and creative experiences, I think it's a huge takeaway for connected TV. Number four, it's 100% viewable, and it has better than 90% completion rates. There's no way to fast forward these. They're non-skippable ads. And again, there's usually only just one or two ad positions here. So oftentimes people don't even pull out their phones or walk out of the room in order to, multitask or whatever it might be. So the only way to get less than 100% completion rate in connected TV is essentially to either close out of that app or to simply turn off the app or turn off the connected device, or turn off that advanced TV. So that's why you see such great completion rates. It's got that brand safe environment, all types of brand safety, fraud protection, viewability protection, all those types of things that are baked into our normal campaigns at AdTaxi are baked into our connected TV campaigns. Similarly, we won't put this contextually against any kind of taboo or risque content. So, you can rest assured that it's obviously in the premium, in that brand safe environment for you or for your advertisers. And the last piece is that it's measurable. And I think that this is probably the biggest takeaway in terms of its differentiation from traditional TV. And so let's just take a quick second to look at this. What we've done is, obviously we have our reporting templates, but what I want to showcase to you is not necessarily what our reporting template looks like, but what you are able to report out on with regards to connected TV. So here, this isn't showing you indexes, right? This isn't showing you ratings. This isn't showing you know, what TV, a traditional TV company might, you know, say to you on the front end in terms of buying. Instead, what this is actual viewed impressions for these genders, for these age groups, for these net worths, for these incomes, et cetera. And here you can see that these people have been exposed to these number of impressions. From there, we're also able to show, you know, what was the watching or the usage patterns by city, you know, by state, how much percentage of completion did they end up watching? Did they watch, you know, to 100% completion? What's the attrition rate from 25% to 100%? All these types of things. What was the frequency that the you know, the average viewer in these cities or in these age groups, et cetera, ended up seeing these number of ads? The devices, whether it be an Amazon Fire Stick, an Apple, you know, TV, Google Chromecast, the different smartphones that are available. Obviously, we can showcase each of those as well. So what you're seeing is that there's a lot of data that can happen behind the scenes, right? And whether that be day of week or the time of day, again, I come from an analytics background, and so any opportunity to evaluate data, evaluate analytics, and make smart decisions coming from past data or past trends, to me as an analyst from previous experiences, to me, I think that's a wealth of information for you as an advertiser. But it doesn't stop there necessarily. And I think that this is probably the most important part, is the ability to report out on conversions as well. And so what I mean by this is, if a person is seeing your connected TV ad and they eventually go to your website or click around on multiple pages on your website, et cetera, we're able to show that relationship between connected TV ad, right? What you're seeing on the 70-inch TV in your basement or your living room or your family room, wherever it might be, and then also showcasing website activity that came as a result of that advertisement. That's something that traditional TV just simply can't do. We can report on all those demographics. We can report on all these different conversions. So hopefully you see that the power is in data, and whether it be the front end targeting or the back end reporting, there's a whole host of information that allows you to be much more precise as advertisers than if you were doing any kind of traditional TV or any kind of cable TV purchasing on your own or in the past. So just wanted to show you that before we kind of jump back into the rest of the presentation, but hopefully that resonates with each of you. Now, the reason that we can do this, right? The reason that we're able to measure out that website activity really comes down to kind of two technologies. It's view-through capabilities and cross-device attribution. And I'll take a quick second to explain these. I think everybody's obviously familiar with clicks and click-through rate. So you see an ad, you click on it, and you go to the advertiser's website. That obviously is a recorded click and gets bundled into kind of your click-through rate, right? But oftentimes we're used to seeing click-through rates in, 0.06, 0.08, whatever it might be, and we're so jaded to think that some of those may or may not be successful. But the fact is that the average person receives about 1,700 banners per month, and only 8% of all online users actually account for 85% of all clicks. So when you start thinking, if you're optimizing based off of any kind of click activity or click-through rate or anything like that, you're really optimizing to a significant minority of people, which clearly doesn't tell that whole story. And if you're making business decisions off of something like that, obviously, I think they could be a little bit misguided. So how can we rein that in? How can we resolve that? I think it's most naturally solved by view-through. View-through kind of follows similar logic as clicks and click-through rate. But let me just take a second to explain it. So if you are served an ad, but do not click on it, and instead visit an advertiser's website, whether it be a minute later by opening up a new web browser and going to their website, or it could be a couple hours later during your lunch break, or it could be a day later. It might be the weekend, and you and your spouse or you and your family are sitting around, and your memories jog, and you decide to go to that website. That would then be recorded as a view-through metric. And to me, I think because we're able to look at whether or not a person clicked and then recorded their actions, or whether or not a person were exposed to the ad and then took further actions, this tells 100% of the story, right? Rather than just 8% of users accounting for all of those clicks, instead we can pay attention to all 100% of people that were exposed and viewed the ad, and then what actions did they take, what actions took place after that. And I think that's a very key component to understanding how we can draw this connection between connected TV and website activity. So if that's the first half, the second half then is cross-device attribution. And what this essentially means is that basically, again, I'll go back to my own example. I have an Apple TV in my house. I also have an iPhone, I have a tablet, I have my MacBook, etc. And so on each of these, I'm logged into using my Apple ID. I'm also logged into all of them using, into my Google Chrome browser. So I've logged in using my credentials there across all of them. So basically what we're seeing is that we've got that persistent ID across all of our devices. And so once I'm served an ad across my connected TV, let's say I see a 30-second video spot, and then a second, whether it be, that second, or perhaps, a couple of hours later, or even that weekend, I pull out my smartphone or I pull out my laptop and I decide to purchase or convert from that ad, from the business whose ad I saw on that connected TV, because all my devices are connected and because we have view-through technology working behind the scenes, we're able to give that credit to the connected TV. So I purchased on my iPhone, but I saw the ad on my connected TV, that connected TV video spot will get credit for having a hand in that conversion or in that sale. So really cool technology there. And I think that allows us to, that helps showcase why and how we can be measurable with the statistics coming out of an awareness vehicle, which is exactly what connected TV is. So from here, this is where I start to talk about a little bit about what are the types of videos that we can do. And I think that we just can be really creative with the type of messaging and the type of content that we create to make sure that we're hitting all areas of the funnel. So on the top of the funnel with connected TV and awareness, it might be good about, it might be good to deliver general kind of engagement videos or those educational videos, or even getting down to kind of product specific videos. But then of course, we want to make sure that we're paying attention to the bottom of the funnel. And I think that this is where, YouTube can really come into play as well. YouTube, it works great as a prospecting tool. It really truly does span the entire funnel, but it has some really interesting capabilities and technology that allow it to be a kind of a true force when it comes down to converting, especially within kind of that video ecosystem in digital advertising as well. So jumping into YouTube now, I'm just going to shift gears a little bit. I want to call out that it really has that viewership to find new customers at scale, right? So earlier we talked about how it's the second largest search engine, second only to Google. But again, because they can cross-pollinate each other, I think there's some really interesting takeaways from here. But let's also not forget that it just has that reach, right? So 1.5 billion global monthly viewers are watching over an hour a day on mobile alone. And I think, we probably all have a story. We can all think back to a time. I'm not proud of it, but think back to a time when we were on YouTube and all of a sudden you look at the clock and it's about 3 or 4 hours have gone by and you just realize that you've been on a slippery slope into the bowels of YouTube. And I think that, that is showcased in this statistic that we have right here. But beyond just reach, YouTube has that precision to target those high intent audiences as well. And I think that's where we start to see that cross-pollination of search and YouTube and all the metadata that takes place behind the scenes as well. So how does this work? And I think it comes down to YouTube leveraging what they call these strong intent signals. And essentially what YouTube, Google is able to do is take a lot of the different capabilities, a lot of the different tracking abilities, the different targeting abilities as part of their G Suite to start to layer in some really interesting insights. So for instance, let's say you're going to buy a home. Obviously, if you're buying a home, you're probably doing cursory Google searches, looking for, a 4-bedroom, 5-bedroom house in a certain suburb, in this price range, whatever it might be. But beyond that, you're probably also utilizing your Google Maps. You might be going to home developers. You might be going to open houses. From there, you might also be downloading certain apps in the Google Play Store, for example, Zillow or Redfin or any of those other, I think Trulia is one as well, any of those real estate apps that exist. And so because of all of that behavior as it pertains to real estate, Google is able to understand that you are a home buying intender, right? You have an intent to purchase a home. And as a result, it gives us that precision, right, to be able to target an audience beyond just, keywords or behaviors or something like that. Instead, it's actual intent off of our own usage patterns across all these platforms that Google offers and has available to us. And so it's because of these intent signals, we're able to drill down into 2 brand new targeting abilities, as well as 1 augmented or improved targeting ability as well. So that first one that's new and improved, or sorry, that's improved, is Affinity. Affinity has been around for a little bit, but essentially it's Google's equivalent of behavioral targeting, right? But because we're able to layer in those more precise intent signals through the G Suite platforms, we're able to get increased reach and increased performance benefits coming out of it, again, because it's just much more precise looking at these intent signals. From there, the second piece is life events. So this is essentially the ability to reach people during major, excuse me, during major life milestones. And this could be things like, getting married, moving, graduating, those kinds of things. And what's interesting is that if you think about it, right, in the instance of getting married, obviously, I was married not too long ago myself, so I think I still remember a lot of the process. You get engaged. It might be, anywhere from 8 to 12 months prior, in some instances more or less, of course, 8 to 12 months prior to the big day. And from there, you start doing all your searches. You make your not.com profile, you start vetting vendors and all these different things. And again, because of those intents, right, your search data, the apps that you download, the web pages that you make, etc., because of that metadata, Google is able to understand that you have that intention of getting married. And because it's such that momentous occasion and has that long lead time, essentially Google is able to, by extension, you are able to target those audiences 3 months prior to the big event, as well as 3 months after that event. Again, because of all, just the lead time and the track record that goes into such a major momentous occasion like this. And you can start to do really creative things when you start looking at, patterns that way. So for instance, let's just go back to this event of getting married. If you are in the wedding industry, whether you're a caterer or a vendor or a venue or any of those things, it's a great opportunity to utilize this kind of targeting in order to get new clients, get new brides and grooms to purchase your services or your goods or whatever it might be. But on the back end, you could be like a utility company, you could be, apartment complexes, this could be new home developers, anything like that, that could be making use of the fact that you want to target newlyweds, right? Because they're going to be buying their first house, or they're going to be buying their, family car or whatever it might be. Very interesting capability to be used for all kinds of industries out there. Then the last one is consumer patterns. So this takes kind of a page out of Life Events book, except rather than it being momentous occasions, it's about those everyday, frequent, habitual patterns that we do as well. So the grocery store that we go to, 1 or 2 times a week, the Targets, the Caribous and the Starbucks that are part of our morning routines, et cetera, right? This is what we mean by consumer patterns. And so as a result of this could be a great opportunity to take, deliver promotional content in an effort to, increase your cart size or increase, your upsell, your cross-sell capabilities, et cetera. So between Affinity, Life Events, and consumer patterns, I think there's a wealth of ways that any of us as advertisers can use this for the benefit of our own businesses. So let's just look at 2 quick case studies. The first would be Sonos, who used Life Events, so major milestone targeting to sell home audio systems to people who were moving. And in this instance, they were able to see a 37% lift in purchase intent, as well as a 425% lift in branded searches. And I think branded searches is actually a really good way of measuring this performance, because essentially that just tells you how the market is searching. If they know your brand, they're searching for it. If they have learned of your brand, that's going to be a lift in that search, right? So 425% lift, I think, is pretty exceptional there. The second case study then is Jimmy Dean. They essentially use consumer patterns, right, to focus on those habitual, daily, frequent patterns of people who were going to restaurants to get their breakfast. So people who are going to Dunkin' Donuts or McDonald's or Starbucks or whatever it might be. And what they found, with the intention of them getting them to purchase their breakfast sandwiches and having it at home or in their car on the way as an alternative to going to the restaurant. So what they found is an 18% lift in purchase intent, as well as go figure, a 425% lift in branded searches as well, right? So really cool to see the lift between both of those when we're looking at whether it be life event targeting or consumer pattern targeting. So after that, let's just take a quick second to refresh on the different types of YouTube ads that are available. I think we're probably mostly all familiar with them, but I just want to make sure that we're staying refreshed here. The first is that TrueView ad. So it's a 15 or a 30-second ad, or it can be it can actually be any length, but YouTube, like I mentioned earlier, will charge you at either the end of the advertisement or at the 30-second mark, whichever one comes first. So if you have a 10-second video ad, you'll be charged at 10 seconds. Or once a person has gotten to completion. So I think those are obviously skippable. Those are probably what we're most familiar. They kind of take that look and feel of a pre-roll ad that I think that we're all familiar with. The other side of the coin then are bumper ads, and those are those 6-second ads that you see preceding your video. They're non-skippable. They are pretty unobtrusive. It really comes down to just staying top of mind and being that frequency play for a particular brand. Now, just because there's only 2 ad formats doesn't mean that we can be creative and strategic with how we use them. And I think it's important to put on our creative hats, our strategic hats, and really start to think about, okay, how can we make use of that segmenting that I talked about earlier, or sequencing, as well as retargeting capabilities. And so, kind of similar to my example earlier, maybe we start out with a general awareness 30-second TrueView ad, right? It's skippable, but let's make sure that we are focusing on only the audiences who are watching that awareness video through to the 30-second completion. If they've watched all the way through to completion as opposed to skipping it, it means that they're an engaged or a more engaged audience, certainly more qualified than anybody who skips it. And so as a result of that, we want to make sure that we're staying on top of those people. So we segment that audience who's watched through to 100% completion, and now we deliver them a retargeted 6-second bumper ad. Again, these are non-skippable. It's a different creative, it's a different message. And again, with the goal of making sure that they are just staying top of mind of the brands or the services that you offer. From there, we can then layer in a separate or a second 6-second bumper ad, which would be the number 3 in the cadence of events here. Again, probably with a little bit more detailed call to action, a different message, a different look and feel. Again, making sure to avoid kind of that blindness or that dilution that comes from having seen multiple ads. So it's obviously very rudimentary how it's delivered here, but YouTube can be a very good tool in terms of sequencing that message, making use of retargeted data sets, and making sure that we're ultimately maintaining that top of mind awareness against your target audience and pushing them to that point of conversion. So if we're talking about then getting to that point of conversion, it would probably make sense to have kind of vehicles to allow for that. And what you see here, before I even get into it, what you see here probably is a very similar look and feel to what we see with our pay-per-click ads or our Google SEM, Google paid search essentially. And what we see here is that with TrueView for Action on the left, we can layer in call to action banners with the goal to drive that on-site activity. So this is similar to those extensions that you're familiar with, with typical search ads. It shortens that click path for the user to get to the content that they're looking for. So they see this video and they have the drop downs, or they have these buttons that allow you to get a quote, buy now, learn more, whatever it might be. Again, kind of prompting a person to leave YouTube and go to that website. And as a result, it also limits and shortens that click path. So rather than going to the homepage of this advertiser and clicking through 1 or 2 more menus, which are all opportunities for me to bounce or leave your website or get distracted, instead we have that direct button that allows us to get that conversion there on the spot, right? And the second then is YouTube for Shopping. So this is tied to a shopping feed and likely an existing e-commerce campaign, but it's designed to get people to shop. So here you see a couple, beneath the video ad, you see a couple products that are tied to product listing ads in our Google Shopping campaigns. And from there, you have the ability to purchase that basically add that to your cart right on site. So really interesting way of making use of that. It makes use of 6-second skippable ads with those product leave behind. So really great opportunity for any kind of shopping or e-commerce campaign that you have running as well, especially if it's running Google Shopping. And then the last are location extensions. These are similar to what you see in kind of those typical search campaigns as well. Here you can see the video content plays, and beneath it is a drop down, very similar looking to kind of that Google My Business setting. It allows for tap to map, the ability to call, etc. So, or visit, the client's website. So from here, we have 3 basically options that allow us to put that call to action in the user's hands that prompts them to take a further action or go to your website. So finally, I think video capabilities are drilling down to that more direct response type of activity to grow conversions, which I think starts to support that initial statistic that we saw in the beginning of the presentation, in which 49% of people who use video grow revenue faster than those who don't, right? So I think that great tactics to make use of when we're running our YouTube campaigns. And we're about to round it out here. We're very close to the end. So the last thing that I would call out here is that I think we all are aware how search campaigns can empower our YouTube campaigns. So we have a search campaign, it has a keyword list. We have always been able to target those keywords in YouTube environment as well. But what we can do is make a two-way street out of those two platforms here as well now, or now as well. And what I mean by that is we can look at people who have recently viewed your videos on YouTube. And so once they've viewed that video, now we can add them to a YouTube remarketing list, essentially create a brand new ad group. And so once we've added that remarketing list to our existing search campaigns, we're able to measure that performance. And then from there, we're able to deliver retargeted text ads, retargeted search ads, essentially against people who have already been exposed to your YouTube videos, with an emphasis on increasing that purchase consideration, right? So rather than, or we can always use a search campaign to use their keywords to empower our YouTube campaigns, but now we can finally take YouTube viewing data, add that audience to a separate ad group or a remarketing list, and now remarket people across search, Google search, having already been exposed to those YouTube videos. So here we start to see, as with any of our omni-channel campaigns in which we have 2 or 3 or more products, their performance will always be improved as opposed to a standalone campaign. So by layering in YouTube, by layering in search, and making sure that those are talking to each other, we'll be able to improve the effectiveness of your campaign in both sides. So obviously we've talked about cord cutters and cord nevers, we've talked about usage patterns, we've talked about how all the trends are accelerated beyond their original forecasts. We spent quite a bit of time talking about, connected TV, addressable TV, and of course, the character or the new features that are available within targeting for YouTube. So I think there's a lot of argument to answer the question why video makes sense now. But beyond that, more basic, I think it really boils down to 3 things. Okay, the first is costs. I think we're at an age where production costs for video assets, it's only coming down. Obviously, with the TV industry declining a little bit and connected TV increasing, we're starting to see more efficiencies there as well. And just by the sheer fact of the matter that connected TV is a cheaper alternative to broadcast and traditional TV, I think that's why, cost is kind of the #1 reason for why video makes sense now. 2, it's between that front end targeting and that back end reporting. Rather than kind of crossing your fingers and hoping for a perfect storm, which is exactly what traditional TV is. Essentially, within traditional TV, you buy a program or a time frame in which your target audience indexes higher, right? You buy essentially ratings against your target audience. And as a result of that, you're hoping that that target audience is in fact in front of their TV, is of course not recording this on a DVR and fast forwarding. And then of course, because there's usually like 3 or 4 minutes between programming, they're not out of the room or on their smartphones or cooking dinner or whatever it might be. So the ability to target your target audience directly on the front end is, I think, a huge feather in our cap as far as the ability to make sure that we're not wasting money to deliver that message. But then on the back end, it's that reporting, right? Time of day, day of the week, the ability to look at the different devices, age, income, household income, net worth, all those different types of features. But then lastly, but most importantly within that as well, is the ability to show on-site activity coming out of this reporting as well, which is, again, a huge departure from traditional TV. And then #3, lastly, I would say it's just its integration with other digital products. And what I mean by this is, obviously, in the middle of this presentation, I talked about how connected TV and our advanced TV offerings have all the same type of targeting that our other platforms offer, whether that be social media or Facebook targeting or programmatic or display or whatever it might be. Again, it's the ability to maintain that seamlessness between all of our plans, and of course making sure that video is doing a good job of driving that awareness, which can then be unloaded to another part of the omni-channel program, which could include native advertising, or it could include search, et cetera. So essentially maintaining that consistency of message and that ability to segment audience consistently that comes within digital. I think that's why integration is such a key component of any strategy that includes connected TV. So with that, again, I want to say thank you for your time. I appreciate everybody taking about an hour out of your day to sit through the state of video here in 2018. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me directly. I'm happy to jump on a call or talk about any of this in further detail. Of course, you're also able to speak with any of your local ad taxi reps who would be willing and able to get you any of this content or provide further discussions around connected TV and YouTube capabilities as well. There will be a recording of this webinar coming your way. So unless there's any other questions, again, thank you for your time, and we will talk to you soon.